Ever since Bleach had begun serialization back in 2001, Kubo has fully fleshed out several stories which have never made it within the pages of his manga. I'm talking about detailed backstories for some of our favourite characters, as well as abilities and Bankai that have yet to be revealed. In this video, I'm going to be going over all of the different hints that Kubo has revealed about various different plot points of Bleach. This video is really comprehensive as I've dived through all of the 700 questions that have been asked on Kubo's official fan club, and have gone back and looked through all of the different question and answer and interview sessions that Kubo has taken part in ever since 2001. We're talking about interviews where he has visited America, Germany, as well as question and answer and interview sections within Weekly Shonen Jump and at the end of his Bleach databooks. You're definitely going to want to stick around until the very end of the video, as I'll be covering unused ideas which Kubo may be implementing within the upcoming Hell arc of the Bleach manga. So without further delay, here is my video covering all of the cut content and unused ideas that Kubo has had for Bleach. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Hollow Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. Let's start by talking about Ichigo's classmates and Kubo's initial plans for them in the story. So in question 295 asked on Kubo's fan club, a fan had wondered whether if it's true that Kubo had ended the Substitute Shinigami arc earlier than he had planned. If this is the case, then what was originally intended to be written in terms of the story? Kubo reveals that he had originally intended to write a short story arc for each of Ichigo's classmates, but somewhere along the line he had got bored and scrapped the idea. Kubo states that he believes he had actually mentioned this in one of the Bleach databooks. From the Bleach Souls character databook, you can see that Kubo had fully fleshed out Ichigo's class, which is 1-3 from Karakura High School. He reveals details about Ichigo's teacher, as well as his classmates Michiru, Chizuru, Keigo, Mizuhiro, Mahana, and Ryo. Now alongside these characters there is also Tatsuki, who we do learn a bit more information about because she is really close to Orihime, and we learn that she was actually friends with Ichigo ever since he was 4 years old, since they had attended the same dojo together. From the fact that Kubo has fully fleshed out names and details of each of these characters, it makes sense that he probably wanted to write stories involving each of them, but he states that he had gotten bored of the idea, but I have heard that his editors had told him to move the story along so that they can begin the more exciting Soul Society arc instead of lingering on Ichigo's classmates. Adding to this, in question 181 on Kubo's fan club, a fan had asked that why does Tatsuki want to be stronger? The fan wonders about Tatsuki's name, which appears to be strong, but he comments on how he is sure that there was a backstory revealed where Tatsuki states that she doesn't like her name. The fan goes on to imagine that maybe Tatsuki's parents work at a dojo or something related to martial arts. The fan is also interested about Orihime's days in middle school, but viewed from the perspective of Tatsuki. This is because Ichigo and Orihime's pasts have some similar points, since they were both bullied about the color of their hair, and since both of them had experienced the death of a family member at such a young age. So the fan is wondering whether if Tatsuki had noticed that Ichigo and Orihime have these things in common. So Kubo responds by stating that the karate dojo that Ichigo had used to attend when he was a kid is actually attached to Tatsuki's home. Also, in a flashback which he had to cut down due to page limitations, there was a scene where Tatsuki draws a parallel between Ichigo and Orihime. Now you're going to see that content is often cut from Kubo's manga due to page limitations. Often there are a lot of flashbacks and stories which Kubo did want to expand upon, but for various different reasons like page limitations and time issues, he wasn't able to provide more detail to us. Now while we're talking about material from early Bleach, let's talk about some information about Shinji's role early on in the story. So in the Bleach databook Masked, Kubo revealed that Shinji's story was supposed to be told after Orihime and Chad's Unsed's story arcs had wrapped up during the Substitute Shinigami arc. Kubo initially wanted to do short stories for all of Ichigo's classmates, so I'm presuming that Keigo, Mizuhiro, and the others would have each had their own stories involving hollows, and Shinji would have been included in these stories, as he explains that he initially imagined Shinji to be a transfer student for one of the stories in the Substitute Shinigami arc. Kubo adds to this in question 623, where a fan had asked about the manga color spread from Bleach Chapter 1. Here we can see a very rough early concept design of Shinji, as the fan wonders what was Shinji's initial role in the story supposed to be. Kubo reveals that originally he was meant to be Ichigo's classmate and to have always been in his class, but he ended up not appearing early in the story, so his character turned out to be what it is now. But Kubo elaborates that Shinji's personality is still the same as what he had originally planned. Another reason for why he didn't include Shinji in the Substitute Shinigami arc is because he felt like Shinji's role in the story would have been too similar to Uryu's, so he didn't include him because it would have seemed repetitive. Now, while we're talking about cut, unused, and secret ideas of Kubo, it's important to talk about the reasoning behind why ideas are cut or unused. During an interview between Kubo and the voice actor of Ichigo, Masakazu Morita, at the end of the Bleach character databook Souls, Kubo was asked when does he feel satisfaction the most when he is working. Kubo states that he guesses that this would be when he is able to draw out exactly what he has imagined. Because he only gets 19 pages to work with every week, he has to cut out some stuff on occasion, and it rarely works out perfectly just as he had imagined. But on those rare occasions when he is able to get the balance right, he states that it feels great. The thing with each manga chapter is that it has to have a gripping beginning, middle, and end. The end of each manga chapter needs to give a reason for the reader to stick around for the next installment, which is why, in that span of 19 pages, Kubo needs to craft a compelling story, which means that he is restricted to how much exposition, monologue, as well as backstory that he can include within any given chapter. There is only so much build-up that he can do for a story arc, and there are only so many characters that he can expand upon before readers get bored. And because he is working within Weekly Shonen Jump, there is a lot of competition, so there's a lot of pressure for his manga to continuously remain interesting, and of course this isn't even to mention the expectation that his editor will have of the story, which in most cases does affect work which is published within Weekly Shonen Jump. I do want to say that most mangaka have less pressure from their editor the longer that their work has been serialized and established within Jump. Kubo had gone on record to also say that his editors have very little sway in his story, but this comment was made by him way after the completion of the Soul Society arc, so I believe that a lot of stuff that is cut is because of his own desire to make sure that each chapter, which consists of 19 pages, remains interesting, and it doesn't have this unnecessary padding, because after all, Bleach is a story that is centered around Ichigo. There's only so much time that Kubo can spend on the side cast of characters. At the end of Bleach Volume 29, there is a section called Concept Sketches for the Bleach anime. Kubo explains that these are design concepts from the Forest of the Menno story arc of the Bleach anime, as Kubo wasn't able to include Ashido Kano in the manga because of timing issues, so he is glad that he was able to introduce him here in some way and in the anime. Kubo designed the environment of the Forest of the Mennos, as well as the complete look and design of Ashido Kano and his hideout and even more details. Now, while it would have been nice to have Ashido Kano appear within the manga, Kubo decided not to include him because again it would have diverted away from the main plot and would have just served as a nice side story. It does make you wonder just how many side stories are there that Kubo has come up with which ended up being cut from the manga. This includes information about the 5th unnamed noble family. So at the end of the Bleach character databook Souls, during that interview between Ichigo's voice actor and Kubo, Kubo is asked about the 4 great noble families, as he is questioned whether if they consist of the Kuchiki family, the Shihoin family, and the Shiba family. Kubo clarifies that the Shiba family isn't amongst the 4 great noble families, but when the Shiba family was once a part of them, they were called the 5 great noble families. Kubo states that he has a lot of other ideas about them, but he doesn't want to draw them unless he needs to, explaining that he would much rather draw them at the best time rather than just forcing it out. From the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, we learned that Kubo had revealed the identity of one of the noble families which was unnamed, which is the Tsunayashiro family, which leaves us with just one unnamed noble house. I have no doubt that Kubo definitely has an entire plotline centered around this unnamed family, so I do look forward to seeing Kubo expanding upon this. Now let's turn our attention towards the unrevealed abilities, zanpakuto, or even Bankai of characters. So in question 5 asked on Kubo's official fan club, the fan had asked Kubo, is there any possibility that unrevealed zanpakuto or Bankai will be introduced in some form in the future? Kubo states that if there is a place where he feels it would be acknowledged by a good deal of readers with a suitable number of pages, then he would definitely like to draw these unrevealed zanpakuto and Bankai sometime in the future. So Kubo sets out several conditions here, like there needs to be a large enough audience tuning into the work, as well as whatever he decides to do needs to have a suitable number of pages, which leads me to believe that if Kubo does one day continue the manga arc, then I don't think that each chapter is going to be 19 pages, and I don't think it's going to be sticking to a weekly release. It would be much more preferable for Kubo if he were to stick to a monthly schedule where he draws however many pages that he wants to for that chapter, and he releases it in this manner, as I believe that this would give him more than enough opportunity to write in all of those unrevealed zanpakuto or Bankai and to flesh out a lot of these side stories. In question 568, a fan had asked that they would like to know the Shikai abilities of the 3 seated officers of the 3rd Division who were instantly killed by Bazby in volume 56. Kubo answers that those abilities which never got a chance to be showcased are a secret because he may be using them somewhere else. Now it's unclear whether if Kubo wants to do a story arc centered around a flashback where these deceased characters are still alive, or whether if he wants to revive these deceased characters via the Hell arc in some way. Now while speaking about backstories, there is something really important that you need to know about Kubo. It's that he actually has a backstory written for almost every single character. When Kubo had gone to Germany in 2013, he had revealed that a untold story exists for pretty much every single BLEACH character. Most of them ended up being scrapped and not included in the manga due to time issues. I'm not sure if Kubo has forgotten that he had drawn this within the manga, but he gives an example of the story of what Grimjaw was doing before Aizen had taken over Hueco Mundo. He states that he has this entire story fleshed out but he was unable to tell it. Maybe there is more detail to this backstory that we didn't have revealed, which is what Kubo is referring to, but yeah, this is really interesting to know, and Kubo expands upon this information in his answers on Club Outside. In question 175, a fan had stated that they really love Chad's character, and they would like to know whether if there is a backstory written out about Chad's tattoo and when and how he had got it inked. Kubo reveals that after Chad's grandfather had passed away, Chad had got it inked in order to keep his spirit strong. Again, we wouldn't have known about this information unless this fan had asked Kubo. In question 307, Kubo is asked between Isshin and Misaki who had come up with the name Ichigo. The fan states that his personal headcanon is that Ichigo was born because Isshin had protected one thing, which is Masaki's life, and since Isshin would probably dislike the idea of his son bearing half of his own name, the fan reckons that Masaki may have come up with Ichigo's name, as they ask Kubo whether if there is a definitive answer as they would love to know. So Kubo answers that Masaki is actually the one who had named Ichigo. For a long time he was in two minds whether or not if he should draw Ichigo's naming scene, but he had abandoned the idea because it would likely just be Isshin and Masaki getting all lovey-dovey and he thinks that that's gross. So that's a massive disappointment for all of the romance fans. Kubo doesn't like to draw all of that stuff in his series. As we move into question 474, as the fan asks that they love the Fullbring arc, but how old is Ginjo and how exactly did he become a substitute Shinigami? So Kubo reveals that how he became a substitute Shinigami is a secret, but his human age is 28 years old. While we do learn details about Ginjo's backstory within Can't Be Your Own World, it isn't explicitly stated how he had become a substitute Shinigami. Honestly, I personally would have loved to have seen a side story where this is revealed about Ginjo, as it's literally the origin of the substitute Shinigami concept, but for some reason Kubo is deciding to keep this a secret. Question 633 asked on Club Outside gives us another example of unrevealed information which Kubo may share with us in the future, as the fan asked that they've been a BLEACH fan for over 50 15 years, and they've recently become obsessed with Tetsuzaimon Iba's character. They ask Kubo, can you share information on him, like his zanpakuto, his family background, and the injuries that he had sustained in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, or what is behind his sunglasses. Kubo ignores a lot of what is asked here, as he states that he may reveal what's behind his sunglasses someday. Now, Tetsuzaimon Iba is of course the lieutenant and now captain of the 7th Division, but before him, during the Ten Back the Pendulum arc, we learn about Kotsubaki Junemon. He was the previous lieutenant of the 7th Division, serving under his captain Love Aikawa. Kotsubaki Junemon is actually the father of Sintaro, but we don't know if he is related to Iba in any way. They do both share a striking resemblance to one another, and the fact that Iba's eyes are covered in sunglasses, and Kotsubaki's eyes also appear to be covered with this red lens, so it definitely makes me wonder just what information is Kubo holding back from us here? What is the secret behind those sunglasses? Now, following this, we have information in the Bleach databook Masked, where Kubo reveals the design of Byakuya's late father, Sojin Kuchiki. He states that he was never cut out to fight, but since he was born into the Kuchiki family, he does have a talent for it. Ginrei Kuchiki was worried about his son's health, but because Sojin was going to be the next head of the Kuchiki family, this is why he was appointed as Ginrei's lieutenant, and he wasn't a captain of a separate division. But unfortunately, Sojin Kuchiki ended up dying on the battlefield in the end, and it does seem like Kubo does have a backstory for this character that he's written out, but it was unfortunately never revealed within the manga. If you've been following Kubo's comments, then you'll know that he actually has a complete backstory for how Urahara and Yoruichi had met. So before the Thousand Year Blood War arc was released, Kubo revealed details about the upcoming story arc in segments published within Weekly Shonen Jump, and these were called Bleach, Repeat, and Reboot. Here, Kubo revealed that for the final arc, he wanted to draw the story of how Yoruichi and Urahara had met over 100 years ago. I do think that there is a huge possibility of this being revealed to us during Core 4 of the anime. As following the Fullbring arc, Kubo was asked that Isshin is also a former Shinigami, but Urahara was the only one who went to the Soul Society with the Reiatsu sword, which was going to restore Ichigo's powers. The interviewer wonders why is it that Isshin did not accompany Urahara to the Soul Society. Kubo states that if Isshin went, then certain things would be revealed to the Shinigami of the Gotei 13, so he didn't want to go. He also doesn't know any of the Vizard captains from 100 years ago, and strangely he tags on at the end of this answer that he'd also like to draw the story of how Yoruichi and Urahara had met over 100 years ago. Now, this backstory is also teased to us within the afterword of the Can't Be Your Own World light novels. So both Ryogo Narita and Makoto Matsubara, who both write Bleach light novels, had sat with Kubo. They had both heard the story of Urahara and Yoruichi's backstory directly from Kubo. They immediately told Kubo that he needs to draw this someday, as they want to read it in manga form. In question 676, when Urahara had become a captain, Shinji had made a cryptic comment to Aizen. The fan wonders whether if Aizen had an interest in Urahara before he had become a captain, wondering whether if this was due to Urahara's earlier research or their time together at the Shinigami Academy. Kubo in his answer hints at some untold backstory information about Aizen and Urahara, as he states that Aizen had known about Urahara even before he had become close with Yoruichi. Now, this is fascinating. You can tell that he has an entire story probably planned out that for some reason he wants to keep a secret from us. Now, returning to the afterward section of the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, we learn some important details about how these light novels were conceptualized from Kubo's unrevealed notes. Narita states that both himself and Makoto Matsubara had spoken to Kubo directly during a meeting about the light novels, where Kubo had revealed information about the past of characters, as well as what was going to happen in unrevealed plotlines and what is going to be happening in this particular part of the story. And Kubo had also shared with both of them important details about all of the remaining mysteries that exist within the world of Bleach. Narita states that when he had received an answer about all of these different aspects from Kubo's own mouth, it had a tremendous impact upon him, as he had immediately questioned Kubo, why didn't you draw the part about the past of the Soul King and the noble families? He elaborates that the last few battles were being drawn at the time in the manga, and Kubo wanted the focus to remain on Ichigo until the very end of the story. This is something that I've highlighted earlier in the video, that the story of Bleach is about Ichigo, and if we focus too much on supplementary information, then of course Kubo is right, it is going to affect the flow of the story, and it's going to take our attention away from Ichigo, who the story is about. So despite this answer, Narita had stated that he was still very interested in all of the revelations that Kubo had told him. He had questioned Kubo whether if it is okay to include some of this information in his Can't Be Unworld light novel, and whether if Kubo will be upset if he reveals this information in there. Instead of being angry, Kubo instead delved deeper into the lore of Bleach, giving advice about the characters that we all know and love, as well as introducing possible new characters that Narita may be able to use in the light novel. And this is pretty much how the story of Can't Be Unworld had taken shape, which is centered around the 5 great noble families, and Shuhei Hisagi was chosen as the protagonist of the story. The entire Can't Be Unworld story had stemmed from these ideas that Kubo had refrained from including within the manga, so it does make me wonder just how much more has been left on the cutting room floor. So we now turn our attention towards additional information which Kubo may be saving for a future story arc like the Hell Arc manga continuation. In question 454, Kubo was asked whether if the setting and story of the No Breeds from Hell one-shot chapter is linked to Bleach Movie 4, but Kubo reveals that the No Breeds from Hell one-shot chapter is totally separate from Bleach Movie 4, which means that he is going to be giving us his own separate take on Hell if he decides to continue the manga, and it's going to be totally different to what we have seen in Hellverse. We know from comments which Kubo had made about Hellverse, which were included within the physical release of the movie, that he had actually sat with the scriptwriter of the movie and he had shared various details about Hell with the writer. But because of production issues and time constraints, nothing that Kubo had told the writer was included within the final movie. So it's for this reason that Kubo actually wanted his credit as executive director removed from Hellverse. But it was too late to have this removed, and thus we know that Kubo has a lot more details about Hell, which he had told to the writer of Hellverse way back 10 to 12 years ago, which he may now be saving to be included within the Hell arc. In question 462, Kubo was asked about the newly introduced character within No Breeds from Hell called Yayahara Yuyu. He explains that she seems to be obsessed with the Gyaru culture, as well as being influenced by Lisa's dress style. The fan wonders what was Yayahara's design before she had taken on this appearance. Kubo explains that she wasn't dressed as a Gyaru back then, but he may draw what she had used to look like someday, so he's going to keep this quiet for now. This once again reveals that Kubo has intentions to reveal additional plot lines about characters who had appeared within the No Breeds from Hell one-shot chapter. During Ichigo's battle against Byakuya, we learn about the possible existence of Byakuya's sworn enemy. In question 115, Kubo was asked that Byakuya said that Ichigo was the second person to ever bear witness to his Senkei. The fan asked Kubo who was the first person who has seen it. Kubo states that he cannot answer this here. Just what on earth is this plot detail that Kubo isn't sharing with us? I mean, it seems like an inconsequential throwaway line for Byakuya to say you are only the second person to have ever seen his Senkei, but with Kubo nothing is coincidental. He lays small seeds which are planted and they flourish way later down the line. So I do wonder whether if Kubo does have a plan to reveal Byakuya's mysterious sworn enemy. Next, we have some unrevealed information about Yoruichi's siblings. In question 695, Kubo was asked whether if Yoruichi's only sibling is Yushiro. Since their names contain numbers and times of the day, the fan was wondering if there are other siblings, and if so, do their names also contain numbers and references to time like morning or daytime. Kubo states that he'll keep whether if there are more siblings a secret, but for children and who are potential heirs to the Shihoin household, their names do include a number and a time related character. So yeah, again, there's more information about the noble houses that we haven't been told, and from Kubo's answer it does seem like he is hinting that Yoruichi may indeed have more siblings. Now, one of the most interesting unrevealed details that Kubo has hinted at on Club Outside, which we have no idea about, is some information that was revealed on Club Outside in question 64. So this is about Rukia Kuchiki. So the fan states that they have a question regarding the typeface of Rukia Rukia's name, which was written on the cover of chapter 266. The fan states that for Rukia's cover art, Kuchiki is written in the typical black typeface which is used for Shinigami. For context, for the chapter covers of most of the other Shinigami, we see these black brush strokes for all character cover arts for all Shinigami like Ukitake, Urahara, Kenpachi, and most notably Byakuya Kuchiki, whose entire name is written with this brushstroke typeface. The fan wonders whether if there is some significance behind why Rukia is not written in these black brushstrokes for her chapter cover. They are curious about the covers with names on them, since all of the names of the other Shinigami are written by brushstroke, but part of Rukia's name is written in a different typeface. We do see an example of a different typeface for Uryu's chapter cover, which looks similar but is still different to the way that Rukia is written in her chapter cover, as Kubo answers that this does have a significance, but he may draw it somewhere else, so for now this is a secret. So there is a huge secret about Rukia's origins or race that we have no idea about. The only way that I can decipher this is by looking at Ichigo's cover art, where part of his name is written with these brushstrokes, then it appears to be written in a similar typeface to Uryu's, but even then it seems to be very different to the way that Rukia is written on her chapter cover. Then I started to theorize, well, it may be that Rukia has a part of the Soul King within her, but then I looked at Ukitake's chapter cover and his entire name is written in brushstrokes. So with her not containing any Soul King fragments or a piece of the Soul King, you can rule out that she's not a Fullbringer. And comparing the typeface from Hollow Ichigo and Ichigo's chapter covers, you can rule out that she's not a part Hollow. So there is something very unique and special about Rukia's character that we don't know about yet. This may be something linked to her past, as we know that she wasn't born into the Soul Society, she actually was once a human, and after she had died, she was reincarnated into the Soul Society along with her older sister Hisana. This is easily one of the biggest untold mysteries of Bleach, which we are still waiting for Kubo to reveal to us. We now turn our attention towards Unohana's backstory, which Kubo had hinted at for Jump Festa 2023. So this was a talk between Morita and Kubo, where Morita had stated that in the original manga, she was labeled as the greatest villain in the history of the Soul Society. Morita states that fans would love to know about the time when Unohana was this great criminal before she had joined the Gotei 13. He wonders whether if Kubo actually has a story written out, as fans would love to see it. Kubo states that they don't actually plan on telling Unohana's backstory in the anime, but he has written a complete history of a character, including how she had grown up. Now, adding to this, in question 590 on Club Outside, Kubo was asked in what way did Yamamoto and Unohana first meet. Kubo states that he may draw this someday, so for now it's a secret. I do think that content like this is definitely going to be reserved for the Hell arc, where it's revealed that Unohana, Ukitake, and Yamamoto have been sent to Hell. So it does seem like he is saving a lot of this material for the Hell arc. Now, while we're on the topic of backstories, within the Core 1 DVD and Blu-ray release, there was a booklet which had some Q&As from the series director Tomohisa Taguchi, where he had made comments on each of the episodes. So Taguchi states that they had asked Kubo to provide them with various details about backstories of the Quincy's, Yhwach, and other characters. While Kubo had told Taguchi and the anime staff a lot of the backstory of the Quincy, he states that this information will not be revealed to the public. Now, this is because of Kubo's own personal preference, as he dislikes it when stories over-explain concepts and don't allow the reader to read between the lines. I mean, he explains this when he had made his comments on Unohana's backstory, where he had stated that the motto of Bleach is that if it is hidden, then it is the flower. When Kubo had visited America in 2008, he was asked by Shonen Jump whether if he will ever write Aizen's backstory. Kubo states that he thinks that part of Aizen's appeal is that he is mysterious, and it may not be good for his character if he were to reveal everything about him. So if he does feel the urge to reveal Aizen's backstory, then maybe he will, but for now he is not going to. While these comments were made back in 2009, Kubo was also asked about Aizen's backstory in question 327 of Club Outside. A fan had asked, was it intentional that Aizen's origins and past are largely undisclosed? The fan states that they would like to know because they often find themselves thinking that there aren't many villains who possess that much charisma, whose backstory and history is unknown to the reader. Kubo states that it is often in media that the past of villains is revealed in order to draw sympathy from readers and a sense of relatability from the audience. And personally, Kubo doesn't like this approach very much, so he tries to avoid it at all cost. He states that all characters have a different set of values, and he believes that a villain is a character whose differences in that regard are so large that they cannot be accepted. So he doesn't want his readers to sympathize with Aizen, so for this reason he isn't revealing the circumstances behind why he is the way that he is. Back in 2013, Kubo attended a panel in Germany when he was researching details about his upcoming 1000-Year Blood War arc. Kubo stated that he includes language into his story, associating specific languages with different groups in order to reflect their characteristics. He had chosen Spanish for the Arancas, which captures their passionate and untamed nature. He had given the language of German to the Quincy, which mirrors their methodical and straightforward demeanor, and fascinatingly, Kubo expressed a desire to introduce French into the series, stating that he is attracted by its elegance. This statement has led some fans to speculate that French may be the language of a new group which may be associated with the Hell arc. Kubo had also assigned the language of English to the Fullbringers, which once again demonstrates his consistent use of language as a thematic tool within Bleach. Some untold or unused pieces of Bleach information have made their way into the Bleach anime. Last year, in question 483 on Kubo's fan club, he was asked, does the Soul King have a name? Kubo states that he does, and it may be revealed depending upon the current flow of events in the anime. And sure enough, in episode 28 of Core 3, the Soul King's name was revealed to be Adonius. Earlier in the video, I spoke about Bleach Repeat and Reboot, so after the Bleach Fullbring arc had wrapped up in the manga on the 11th of January 2012, the Bleach manga went on a 3-week break so that Kubo had time to prepare for the final arc, the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Over this 3-week break, instead of chapters, we received 3 installments of bonus material called Bleach Repeat and Reboot. They had dropped hints about the final arc and revealed details about the story up until the end of the Fullbring arc. Now it's really interesting to look back at Repeat and Reboot, seeing all of the things Kubo hinted at and desired to draw in comparison to how the story turned out within the manga. It does make you wonder if some of these details that he had spoken about that didn't make it into the 1000-Year Blood War arc may appear within the anime exclusive scenes of Core 3 and 4. So Kubo had discussed that each of his story arcs usually have a secret theme, stating that the Soul Society arc was about saving Rukia, the Aranka arc was about saving Orihime, the Fullbring arc was connected to Chad, but at the time Kubo had stated that he is refraining from sharing the secret theme about the final arc, but we obviously know that the 1000-Year Blood War arc was connected to Uryu. In the 3rd issue of Repeat and Reboot, Kubo spoke about how Rangiku's past will be a significant plot point in the final arc, but unfortunately we didn't end up learning anything new about her, but I think that this may be corrected in Core 4. Kubo also states that between the 17 months after Aizen's defeat and the end of the Fullbring arc, Rukia had become the lieutenant of the 13th Division. He states that this was a major plot development and Kubo did want to draw it happening, but he had feared that it was going to take up too many chapters, so instead he states that he's going to show it to us through some flashbacks in the final arc, but unfortunately we did not end up getting to see these flashbacks in the final arc. Before the 1000-Year Blood War arc had started, Kubo spoke about how he wanted to draw the story of how Yoruichi and Urahara had met over 100 years ago, explaining that the past of the Shinigami will be very important going into the final arc. Unfortunately, we didn't get the reveal of their backstory, so it does make me wonder whether if it's going to be included within Core 4. So this video ended up being way longer than I thought that it was going to be, as there is so much material that Kubo has not included within the manga which he has clearly thought and planned out. There are some things that he has stated he wants to keep a secret, there are other things that he has commented on wanting to reveal at a later time in the future, and it seems like some of this information is going to be revealed within the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime via some new scenes, and there is potential for new information to also be revealed if Kubo decides to continue the manga via the Hell arc, which I think is very likely. After going over all of these different plot details and story beats which Kubo desires to draw at some point in the future, I don't think it's crazy to say that Kubo does plan on continuing the manga at some point, as long as he can strike a perfect balance between the page numbers as well as the overall length of the story that he wants to tell. We've talked about unrevealed backstories, abilities, the zanpakutos, Bankai, as well as story beats that Kubo initially planned to include, but ended up being cut for a variety of different reasons like timing issues, or with him having to work with just 19 pages a week, where it was difficult for him to really expand upon specific story beats that fans had wanted to learn more information about. We have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Was there anything in this video that you didn't know about from all of the cut, unused, and secret ideas that Kubo has for the Bleach manga? Do you think that some of these will be included within the anime or in the Hell arc if Kubo decides to continue it? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.